So I just want to give people a heads up. My GoPro decided to freeze halfway through filming this entire video. So I'm going to be doing a time lapse this entire video instead of me sitting here talking. So enjoy that, and yeah, hope you enjoy. Cold start. All right, I know what it says. Coolant temp was well under 30 degrees when we started it. You can see my breath. All right, so you guys are probably wondering why I'm doing all these videos on Hotshot trucking, and I haven't even done it yet, starting up in March. So what I want to tell you guys is that I actually did do it before. I know a lot of you do know about that. There's a lot that don't. I did it for about a year. I know a lot of what went on when I did it. So I'm kind of covering some topics that I should have covered back then, but I'm gonna do this stuff now. And then we're also, when we start back up in March, we're gonna go over new numbers, show you all the paperwork, show you all the breakdowns, show you all of that, and go from there. So let's get in the truck and start talking about this, because it's like 25 degrees outside. All right, so holy hell, is it cold outside. It is 25 degrees. Truck started up great this morning. Not really, wasn't too happy about it. I need to be plugging this thing in, I do know that. But that's not the topic of this video. What I want to talk to you guys about is gross earnings versus net earnings. Over how long that I've been doing this, I've seen all these videos titled, I made this in Hotshot trucking. And this is one of the reasons that a lot of guys actually get into this business. And there's times where it does ruin some lives, because people get into this business thinking that they're gonna make all this money so easily, and that's just not the case. Over the years that I've had conversation with people, I've only really ran into a few people that have said that gross numbers matter. Now, to a point, gross numbers might matter very, very small, but for the most part, net is gonna be feeding your family and paying your bills. So if you're just looking at gross earnings, like you see these YouTubers making $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 a year, and they're like, oh yeah, this is why a lot of guys get into the business. They see that and they're like, oh, it's so easy, I can do it. Anybody with a pickup truck can do it. And that's just not the case. Like I said, I ran the power only Hotshot. I know how much money I made in the 1 year that I did it, and I got out of it. I had family, I had things to take care of, so it's like it just wasn't for me. Now, I still moved into, and I stuck with the business, and I decided to move a different route, but now we're gonna be getting back into it once I get everything taken care of. Family-wise and personal-wise. Now, there's a lot of stuff I don't put on social media. I use my Facebook literally just to post dumb stuff. The business page, I'll post updates every now and again, and then there's YouTube and Instagram. But for the most part, I don't really post a lot of personal stuff. But I do want to cover this topic today about the gross earnings, because everybody thinks, you know, everybody freaks out when they see all these numbers and then they see what they actually make, and it's just like, what the heck? So, like I said, I got into a conversation with a guy yesterday. It was about like buying the whole video with the new truck versus an old truck. And I said about keeping overhead low. And for the majority, I probably had about 99% of people on that video agree with that. Keep your overhead low and run an older truck. Now, if you're gonna buy a newer truck, try to put the miles on the older truck so you don't run the new truck into the ground, because you're gonna have to make double payments and all that. So that's where pretty much everybody agreed except one person. And then I had another conversation about that with somebody else today. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much money you make. You can make $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. It doesn't matter, because how much money are you gonna spend a week in fuel? How much money are you gonna spend a week on insurance? How much money are you gonna spend every month on your truck payment, your trailer payment, your maintenance? Like, all of that little stuff comes into play. Now, I know there's a lot of YouTubers that do it. They'll completely, oh, I made this amount of money, but they won't go over the net amount. And everybody's gonna be different. Generally, I've seen Alex will tell you it's about 33% on average, which is fair, but I've seen people make more, I've seen people make less. Obviously, for a guy like me, I have lower overhead, so I'll get to keep more of the money that I make, as opposed to, say, a guy that goes out and buys the new truck. He'll have to throw more money at the truck every month, and he'll also have to run harder. So it's like, if someone makes $200,000, you're only going to keep a certain, like say you make $200,000, you keep 33% of that. That's all well and good. I don't know the math right now. Let's just say 65,000. But then you have a guy like me. I made the point where, yes, I grossed a little over 100,000, but I got to keep the majority of that money. I got to keep well over 30% of it. Now, that doesn't mean I got to throw it all in my pocket. I still have home bills and everything. I had the house, and all my regular bills and all that, and a kid to feed and, you know, everything else. But the point remains the same, that I also got to spend less time on the road, and I could take a week or two off here and there. I mean, I had some good weeks. There was weeks this was my record week. I made $5,600. I drove from Florida, like right down at the bottom near Florida, and I drove up to Washington State. That was a week that I had not one breakdown. The only expense that week was food and fuel. And whatever just dumb little things. But like, if you took out the fuel, which was, I think it was around like $1,700. I don't remember. This was well over a year ago. But after all the fuel and everything, it's like, this guy gave me $5,600 in cash to run this load. It was a tri-axle fifth wheel. It was decent money, and my only expense was $1,700 in fuel. There was no maintenance needed on the truck that week. That's all well and good. But what happens when I come back the next week and I don't make anything because I take off? So you get the point. So I need to tell people, like anybody that watching this video, don't look at these numbers that these guys are making and say, oh, I can get into the business and make that much money. Because even though it seems like you're making such a high amount of money, you see $4,000 hit your bank account and you're like, oh hell, I don't have to do anything. And these people get all excited, but then they don't set the money aside for other things. Back in the day, I was really bad with money years ago. I've started to get really good with it this year, started budgeting and started like throwing money into savings and just doing that. And I know how much money I made this year, but I also know how much money I threw into the truck, how much money I threw into my tools and all that, because I was doing mobile mechanic stuff. So I spent about $7,000 last year on tools, and I spent roughly $6,500, give or take, on the truck. You know, there might be some things missed, whatever, but that was roughly. So it's like, between this year and last year, there's $13,500 to make a gross number. Whereas like, if you went and got a job at a W-2 place and you make $65,000 a year after taxes, okay, you have no expenses. You know, you can say your fuel and your food and all that, but you have no expenses. All that money gets to go in your pocket, you know, and then you pay your bills, you pay for your food and all this and that. So you don't get the tax write-offs and everything that other people do. So I'm not sure like what the exact tax number for whatever that amount is for a W-2, so don't quote me on that. I'm not a tax professional, don't ask me any of that. But what I do, like, I've already made the point. Stop getting into this business thinking that you're gonna make all this money. And how I feel about gross numbers is, gross numbers are really just a bragging right to say, hey, I made all this money. But how much of it are you really putting back in your pocket? Now, everybody's opinion might be different. I don't really want to fight with anybody on that. You guys can have discussions down in the comments how you feel. It seems like most of the people, like the majority of people, agreed that gross, for the most part, does not matter. Net is what pays your bills, takes care of your family and all that. That's what you get to take home. So that's what matters. Now, what's the point in making $400,000 in a year when how much of that did you really throw back in taxes? So also, I want to take a second here to mention, I noticed a lot of guys throwing shade at other YouTubers, whether it's, you know, Alex or Dave or a few other, those are just the two biggest that I know of, or other people. I want to let everybody know that I'm not going to get into the middle of that. I know I worked with Alex for well over a year. I've worked with Hotshot Dave. I went and helped him out fix his truck. I have nothing against either one of them. I don't want to be a part of the YouTube drama. I know a couple people had mentioned that. Also, no, I'm not leasing under Alex Tow Piglet. I'm not leasing under him. So that was also another question that come up. I just wanted to make that quick point. I'm not going to be getting in the middle of the beef or anything. You're not going to see an exposed video, a hate video, or any of that on any of these other YouTubers. I want to try to keep it as humble as possible. I like to be on good terms with everybody for the most part. The real benefit of doing hotshot trucking is the freedom to know that you are your own boss. Like, some of these guys out there that have W-2 position jobs will be making more money than us in net, so they'll take home a lot more money, but we will make more money in gross. Like I said, some of these guys, I've seen guys making $150,000 to $200,000 easily, but how much of that are they really taking home? Like Alex said, it's usually around 33%, depending on what your overhead is. So the guy working the W-2 will take home more, but the hotshot trucker will physically make more. But that's not even to say that's a guarantee either. You can go out and invest in all this stuff. You know, how much money are you gonna spend to get invested? Some people spend $15K to get invested. Some people spend $100K. It depends on if you buy a new truck, it's $65,000. A new trailer, are you gonna do non-CDL? Are you gonna do CDL? Are you gonna do power only and not even get a trailer? I recommend a lot of the guys that do power only to move up to a trailer eventually when they can afford it. I personally, the reason that I do power only is because I like the simplicity of it. It does cost a lot of money to get into this business up front. Like insurance premiums, some of these insurance companies want you to pay this entire amount up front. You know, it could be tens of thousands of dollars at times. I mean, insurance for a year of doing this, what, $20,000, $30,000 quotes sometimes? Yeah, it may go down over time, but you are gonna have to put a lot of money out front. And to invest in a business that you have to throw a lot of money out front, are you really gonna get a return on your investment? If you don't have a savings, you may never see a profit in your life, and you may close the doors before you even make anything. But if you have a decent savings and you have to go through a slow time, you can live off of that savings and keep making money. I definitely recommend that you have 3 months of overhead expenses in your bank account before you ever start this, in general. 3 months of savings at a minimal. That way, if anything happens, you go and buy a new truck and you have to sit for a month while a CP4 goes out. Like, that's another reason I preach the older trucks, because I like to work on them and I can work on them. These newer trucks are kind of a pain, and they're trying to do away with it, and they're trying to make it so that you have to go to the dealership every time something breaks. So that's why I'm saying there is a lot that goes into this. It definitely worked out. I made a lot of money. I met a lot of great people. I made a lot of friendships, and it was worth it for me. Now, for you though, it might not be worth it, especially if you have a good paying, decent job. I quit a decent job to do this. You know, I worked at Snap-on. They were paying like 18 bucks an hour or something like that. And it was decent money, but I wanted more. I was getting burned out. I was tired of working there, and I couldn't do it anymore, so I got into this. And like I said, it worked out great for me. I was happy doing it, but this time I want to take it more seriously, budget my money a little bit better, and I want to lease on with a company to show you guys how much, you know, you can make and how much you're actually going to make in the power only side. Because if you look at what I make in the power only side, you should be able to make more money than that doing freight, but that depends on if there is freight. So there are dead zones and stuff like that. We will see in the future if we ever get into anything more, but for now, let's start it slow. So hopefully you guys learned something from this video. Like I said, very expensive to get into. Gross numbers don't matter. Net matters. Don't look at this like you're gonna make a crap load of money and you're gonna get rich off of it, because even I didn't look at it that way at first, but I started seeing the money roll in every week and I was like, damn, because I was making in between $2,000 and $5,000 a week doing power only, and I was just like, wow, this is a decent bit of money. How much do you spend doing it, and how much deadhead do you have in between as well? So it's just one of those. Hope you guys enjoyed. Leave me some video ideas down in the description, because I want to keep making these. I have more free time freed up lately, and YouTube actually does pay me every month, so I would like to give you guys more content, help out. If you have any questions, put it down in the comment. Let me know. I'll make a video on certain topics. Send me a message on Facebook or Instagram, and just have a good day, guys. Hope you have a safe travels. See ya.